Welcome to episode 3 of Cruise Corner.
I'll never get over
this
that.
shit. Oh man. All right, so we are here, Cruise Corner, and we're going to be talking about ranking systems in Muay Thai and other martial arts. And you know, how valid are they, right? There's a couple ranking systems out there, and you know, we can discuss some of them and their process and what some of the holes in their things. You know, WBC came out with a ranking system, and you know, a lot of people grumbling about it. And you know, I mean, for WBC to come out with the ranking system, they have to start somewhere, right? Like, you can't just, like, it can't come out perfect. And you gotta start somewhere, and not everybody's gonna be happy about it. Oh, this guy's on there, it's bullshit. But you know, over time, as people compete, you know, they somewhat start falling into the place they should be in over time. You know, and that people need to be a little bit patient about it, I guess. But I have, you know, problems anytime human error is involved with, or opinion, right? If there's any kind of opinion about, and it's not systematic and it's not transparent, I start to go, well, I don't know about this, right? Because there's a lot of play with favoritism, and I've seen multiple ranking system out there where you can tell where the favorites are.
Well, let's give them a visual here, right? So let's say we have a scale. All right, on one side of it is a sack of potatoes, and on the other side of it is a number in weight. And somebody comes along and pushes down on one of those things, they can change the scale, you know, and all of a sudden what you paid, how many pounds actually was it, times how much money. So, you know, anytime somebody put their thumb on the scale, there's an issue in my book as well.
Absolutely. And then it happens, you know, and I don't think there's not really an intention for that to happen. It's not intended to, you know, have human error, you know, and, you know, opinions in a system, but it does happen, and you have to create a system that's void of that, I would say. You know,
humans have error intrinsically inside of us, don't we?
it's
So
what
like,
makes
just
what
us
we are.
involved is going to be error ridden.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
I mean, right, that's right. And so I feel like, first of all, as an athlete, as a coach, if I'm looking at a ranking system that's legit, I want it to be purely performance based. And there's got to be fail safes for that, right? Because you know, I can hack that system too, because I can compete in events that favor me winning all the time. And I can climb up the ranks in a specific event with a specific promoter. And so it's tricky, right? Over you, like, you have to really like vet these promotions and vet, you know, a lot of these processes to get a legitimate ranking, right? Like, where are they competing? How often are they competing? You know, how valid are these matchups, right?
well, what is the reason they're creating the ranking system in the first place? That's the first question I'd want to ask. Like, who's behind it? Is it a nonprofit group that's a consortium of martial arts foundations globally, and they're funded by a third party who is not directly funded by anybody? You got to look at the money. Where did the money come from?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that I might look at.
I want to ask something. So for people who are in the dark on this, because I imagine there's some people who just don't know what you guys are talking about. I think it'd be good to explain the brass tacks of what the WBC ranking system even means. Like, what was the statement that they released? And, you know, and all on top of that, what is spurring
You're referring to
Oh.
the ranked people,
Mm-hmm.
the ones who don't care, and the ones who are not listening. Is the unranked, or
Yeah.
is that No, I'm just kidding.
So the WBC, and not only WBC, but there's other organizations that rank their athletes that have compete under their banner. And, obviously the more you compete under their banner, the higher up you go if you do well in competition. Um, you know, and so there's these published rankings of who's the best in each weight category. And and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity, because I assume that our audience kind of knows, but a lot of people in our audience may not know that, what is a ranking system and why do we do that, right? And so the reason why you create a ranking system is, one, to see who's the top dog in each weight class, and you can challenge that person to be the top dog in the weight class, right? And so obviously everybody in competition wants to be number one, and they want to know who the target is to be number one. And so they create these ranking systems so that they can very easily pinpoint who the number one athlete in each weight category, in each gender category, whatever it is, and they can decide who's the best one. And then you have a title shot, right? So they could, obviously, the coveted WBC belt. They have, whoever's holding that belt, number one's the title holder, and then there's runners up, and who can challenge that. And so if you are, I believe, top 5 or top 10 in the rankings, you are allowed to challenge the number one guy. And I'm not very familiar, but I don't know how the UFC does it. Are you familiar with how the UFC? I know they have their own rankings, but it is a lot of. I've always heard grumblings about their rankings, and people like not happy about who's where. But I don't know if is it a point system? I would assume you would know a little bit about this, Jake. But is it a point system, or is it just like some guy in the background, like, oh, I like this guy's better than that guy?
Well, the UFC website, I just looked it up, has an official statement under a big title. It says, "How are rankings determined?" So it says,
"Oh, see, okay.
Rankings were generated by a voting panel made up of media members. The media members were asked to vote for who they feel are the top fighters in the UFC by weight class and pound for pound.
Media members.
Media members. A fighter is only eligible to be voted on if.
Did we lose him?
We have temporarily lost Jake.
Oh, we lost you, Jake. We lost you, buddy. You froze
Dude,
up on us.
The UFC doxed my
Oh,
computer. I was reading.
They're watching.
They
They're
don't
watching
like
us
it.
right
They don't
now.
like
UFC
what
didn't
we're
like it.
talking about.
Right now,
so-
so far, everybody's mad at us. We WBC, UFC, everybody. We're
Listen,
throwing
WBC
names
has
out
no
there.
reason to be mad at us.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I
I'm
was about to say, I
joking.
like the WBC. I like the WBC.
Come on, let's
Um,
create some havoc, guys. We're
No,
here,
I'm a pretty nice guy.
Let's get everybody.
I'm trying to grow as a broadcaster and
and
commentator.
love.
I don't
Peace
have
and
time
love.
for any enemies,
This market's too small. Go have fun with it, Jake. Don't
But
be
it
scared.
sounds like they're taking a big group of people and they're having them vote on who is the best.
So they
guy,
have
which
a
I think
committee.
they're-
No,
well, yeah,
media,
it sounds like they
media
have a-
members.
media members.
Who
So that's
is
like
that?
Aaron
crazy.
Bronister, Errol Hawani, these freaking dudes who hate Dana White. They just voting on.
I mean, who best to create a ranking than someone that hates the president, right? Like
I guess, yeah.
they're not going to be favorable on who the president decides is number one. They're going to probably be more honest. So
Well, that's like a lot of these systems that are put in place. This is a deeper governmental discussion there, but you got a president executive member can appoint a subcommittee of media members, right? So we don't even know that that's how they're necessarily chosen. Maybe Dana White can choose who these media members are. We don't know how that's chosen. So it could be people that are like you said, you'd want it to be a fair group, probably, of people that were not appointed by the person profiting from certain things. That creates a conflict of interest, right?
right. I mean, we're getting a lot of comments here. People talking about the rankings, and a lot of people agree that the amateurs need a ranking system. I think it's important that ranking systems are done in a very fair and transparent way, not some backdoor vote. I don't know who's voting. You know what I mean? Maybe the guy that's voting hates my freaking guts, but I'm better than almost everybody in there, right? I'm never gonna get a title shot because some guy in the committee doesn't like me or whatever. So if I were to do a ranking system, it would probably be void of my opinion, and it would just be very, very, very dry and almost like an AI type system.
Computer based.
Yeah,
We
here's
It
what
talked
would be
about
my
it would be performance and computer based purely that. No involvement, no votes,
with a
no
public algorithm. That's the only way to do it. Like, you have a voting body that votes publicly on what algorithmic measures are put in place. They keep that algorithm very transparent so people can see, just like a curriculum, right? I need to know what
yeah.
I'm being graded on.
What am I learning?
Yeah, I need to know what is the algorithm, and then they should be able to go after that and be ranked, equitably
Open
also
source.
within that
Open
system.
source.
Yeah, it
And
should be.
and I think it should be free.
Mhm.
I think it should be completely free to everybody.
Do you think that let's say you implemented that strategy, do you need to do something like reset the division by having a Grand Prix like how K1 did, where
I mean,
they have this big tournament that ends up in a championship?
I think that yes, I think that would be a great start. Like, okay, we're gonna start this ranking. We're gonna do. I mean, honestly, we can do it at a tournament. We could do it at a U.S. Open or a TBA. It
We've
can be
discussed
done.
that league over league has to have their own ranking, and then there has to be an aggregate of all of the
All of the
leagues.
rankings. Absolutely. I agree.
Mhm.
And then it's performance based purely, right? So that's the start, right? Whoever wins the tournament, TBA or blah 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 or whatever the fuck else, WBC, this, that, whoever wins, gets
The
ranked up
US
higher.
Open, the US
US
Open, whoever
Open.
those guys are. Those guys.
And so I feel like that would be the start, right? We wouldn't even need an 8-man tournament. We could already have one every 6 months. And so, that's something that would help us decide who the hell is number one, and I mean, there's no other way than, and then, I would love to see something where the judges are being watched and tracked for their performance. Referees are being judged and tracked over a grand scheme of all their performances. If they do well and make one mistake, we expect that, right? Every McDonald's, some McDonald's have 4.5 stars, some McDonald's have really shit stars, right? Like, it depends on how well they're managed over time. But you're gonna make some mistakes, you're gonna piss some people off over time, but in the majority of bouts that they've done, maybe they're 4.5 stars, and that's a great freaking judge. That's a great referee. And that would be kind of cool to have, so that, hey, this bout is a very big bout. I would like to have all 4.5 star judges and referees for this, because we can't be fucking around with some new guy, right?
The
Putting their
FNG,
name.
son of a gun. He's scoring stuff all sideways.
I mean, if they have a reputation for being shit, they have a reputation for, going against the curve, as far as, like, there's 3 judges and they always decide off.
Well, there's
There's
accountability for it, right? That way.
there's no system for accountability for judges. There's none. Doesn't exist.
Not with that.
Not
well,
even in the
not
UFC.
without.
No, because there's
Yeah.
who's gonna do that? A sanctioning body, and they would have to admit fault publicly. Why would they do that, right?
Yeah.
But I would, like, nobody's gonna allow that. But I would
I will
love to have that.
say that better sanctioning authorities, and we've worked with a few, they internally police it themselves, right? So if they
Right.
notice, they have their own systems, and I will definitely give definitely a shout out to Bob Carmel here and the USMTA, but
They do great.
having their own systems of like, I can tell when this judge is off from the other group, and then we examine
He
why
can,
that is.
and I've seen him pull judges
Yep.
out that haven't been performing well,
And
but
then
you know
trains
what?
them better,
Correct.
too. So,
But not everybody has that.
no,
Not
it takes a certain
everybody
level of
has that integrity.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I would argue that most people don't.
That's 100%.
And so I would say that a system like this would very easily bring like the Bob Carmel's organization, the USMTA, WBC, up to the top, cream of the crap. They would come up to the top. They would rise to the top as an organization that I would want to work with, and it would give them a lot more value over other organizations that I've seen just butcher fights.
Well, some of the software that we've implemented already kind of helps. Like we could, if we wanted to see like what judge was logged in and what score was put at what athlete during a certain competition. And I know we've talked with Thiago about like the only way, like we used to have a thing called verified results. We talked about which were, the results that we can guarantee happened at our events per se. So like that would store in software show over show that had the live scoring, took the actual data from the bouts, automatically puts that in the system, automatically creating a ranking just by the bouts themselves without us having to touch anything at all. It just goes directly in there, the judge's input. So if you wanted to go back and see what judge scored off, or if there was any contest against the score, you could. But the system that we're using is probably the closest to, obviously it doesn't have all the function of integrating other data, and that's where it gets funky, right? Is the integration of,
it's not an easy endeavor to do something like that.
Everybody would have to use the same software, the same platform, and that's just
that's
not
why I think
happening.
it should be. That's why I think it should be free. If it was free, I think everybody use it. If it was better than everybody's, I think everybody would use it, and it would give value to the entire community.
Well, of course.
Well, free. You're saying free to the athlete.
Free to the promoter, to the athlete, to everybody.
So free of charge.
But they would have to be free to the promoter.
The issue
right?
of anybody, right, would be like, so who's paying to update this thing, and why are they paying for it?
Oh, right, and
the goodness of their heart,
hurdle,
really.
right? Like now we have another
Show
hurdle.
Show me those people. The
I'm
goodness
with
of their heart are.
I agree with that, but in an ideal world, that would be if the software is the best software. It does all the functionality that any promoter needs, right? It's free, so it's cheaper than anybody else's shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually rank everybody. Everybody wants to pay for this, pay for that. I understand why. I get it. I'm not stupid. I know all this shit costs money. But honestly, that would be the ideal situation. That would be the ideal situation. If a ranking is nonpartisan, no opinion about, oh, I like this guy, oh, this guy's my friend's fighter, I'm gonna fuck blah blah blah. Oh, he only fights on my shows, I'm gonna give him a little higher ranking. None of that.
Well, but that now changes, right? To now that they just don't compete on their events because they want to exclude them out of the ranking. So you have that happening like everywhere. It's funny how humans are, right? They learn, and this is just something to destruct the fabric of almost everything ranked that you've ever known. There's always a way to change the system. And I'll give you one example that we've all seen. We've all seen this, guys. And so you'll see. You've ever been to McDonald's drive-through? I haven't been in a while, but
there's two McDonald's examples in a single episode.
but been in the drive-through where they will, right? They'll say, "Sir, could you go park down at the end?"
Mm-hmm.
Because they're gonna set their
they're still
clock.
taking your shit.
They're going to stop the clock. That's there purposefully to see how long the cars are taking so that the data goes back to corporate and they can tell how efficient or effective the drive-through actually is.
How do you know that?
Because I'm a businessman and we have to know these things.
You sound like a
So
conspiracy theorist.
no, this is true stuff.
I
So
mean,
that
that's pretty true.
so that
crazy. I
so
didn't know
they
that.
go and they go and stop the clock, have you pull up so that it does not ding them on their drive time through cars going through. And so that whole statistic, imagine how many millions of dollars that McDonald's invested when they could have just said, you know what, forget the clock, just throw it out, doesn't even matter. And
Doesn't
see,
even
maybe
matter.
if people
They
just
work the system now.
yeah, they're always going to. So that was my example, is that they're going to just push it out. So if you knew that the only way to get ranked was that you had to be on somebody's show or else you're not in the ranking, that's already a failed concept. Unless it's known, you should disclose that it's league only ranking. So yes, your league, if it's an important league, it's a big league, maybe that ranking has weight with people, but you can't act like it's the only ranking, the largest ranking, when that's just not the case, because
Not
the
the case.
athletes don't have the ability to compete on those
In your
events.
right.
Mhm.
And
They would have
especially
to-
imagine if it's pro. Let's go there. They're talking 1,500 to fight a pro fight, and I'm going to now pay you less because I got a ranking system. So now I can pay my pros less. Here's $1,000, and oh, by the way, we're going to put you in on the website. I mean, come on, you
Yeah,
just got to look at it.
That's pretty wild. I didn't know that was kind of how the situation was going. I mean, one of the saving graces of these big organizations, and I'll just use MMA as an example again, like Bellator, UFC, is it's an umbrella. It's like UFC ranking. They're not saying we're the number one guy in the whole world. It's like
it's just ours. Yeah, it's just our shit.
That's it. And so like with Muay Thai, if it's not going to be unified under an organization, I mean, you got rule sets galore, organizations galore. Some fighter in Canada could really be number one, like could school the actual number one ranked guy because he doesn't have the opportunity to compete. No, yeah, I completely agree with you guys. It doesn't make sense.
It's a very tricky, endeavor to legitimately rank a pool of people nationally, right? Like it's fucking hard. I don't pretend to think that's an easy endeavor.
I'm just saying, take it for what it's worth personally, right? Like just know that you're taking it for what it's worth. If it's UFC's property, we know they have a dog in the fight. There's going to be something to why they do theirs.
You understand why it's what it is. Yeah.
If it was the US Open, right? Just make sure that you know what is the reason why that ranking works that way. How does it work? Why do they publish it?
Right.
Just ask, questions for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what are the opportunities for being number one? Like those are, why do I want to be ranked in this particular ranking? And over time, all these organizations are going to come out with their own little rankings, and everybody's gonna, I'm number one here and I'm number one there. But like what Brandon says, man, take it for what it's worth. Understand where, what their process is. I can commend the UFC for actually putting out their process on the website. Like, hey, this is what we do.
I would say every league needs to do that too.
That's the only way. Yeah, you should give us your process. How do you come up with these rankings? Is it a point system? Is it a bunch of dudes behind some freaking office like putting in a little vote? Is it one guy just deciding the whole damn thing? What's the process? It could happen. I mean, it could happen. Like, oh, I like this guy. Let's put this guy here. Yeah. But it's a tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. I don't envy any of these organizations' jobs that have to do it. But yeah, I mean,
we didn't even talk about gambling. We didn't even talk about statistical use and data that they use to gamble.
Insider trading.
A whole nother show.
So
it's a whole nother show.
There's a lot of data.
That'll be a good show one of these days. Talk about the gambling and how that it plays into fight sport in general. And
But I want to ask the
economics of it.
UFC officially, please reply to us, UFC. Who are the media members and who gets to pick them?
Give me
Because
5
that's-
years. I'll be commentating there. So
That's
Yeah,
what I want to
think
know
less.
right now.
I think less, Jake. I
well,
really
that's very
think
kind
less.
of you. But I want to
think
go
it's
back to
gonna be
that
up
point,
there
Brandon.
quick.
I want to get back to that point, Brandon. I think so. Here's just something I thought about while we're talking about this. I think it's because the UFC is being very blatant and open, and they are understandably within their own parameters. They're not going outside to other organizations and introducing them into the rankings. Therefore, having a committee now, the integrity is heightened. They actually can kind of do that because
Absolutely.
it's just their pool.
They're
So when you
verified
go and
results.
everybody, well, now each
Exactly.
promoter
Verified
can have their
results,
own freaking
B.
say. It's verified results, right? So like
I agree.
every promoter can have their own say. And that's not right because now there's a bunch of committees. Now there's subcommittees. No, there's either a committee
It's tricky.
of people
It's
who are
tricky.
trusted and tested and continually vetted and booted if need be. So I think that would sounds to me like the more, I don't know, honest, I want to say, move for a ranking system in martial arts.
I just want to know who the committee members are.
Well, the
I'm
rule
with
is-
Brandon.
Well, I'll
The
find
rule
out.
is what we put in is what we get out. We all
That's
know
right.
that rule, right? What we put in is what we get out. It's the same with computers. It's the same with technology. In this case, like even if everyone was using the same software, it goes back to that driveline theory. They can manipulate the number at the point that it happens. Somebody can put the wrong information in. Somebody gets robbed, it gets contested, it's never updated. I could think of a million ways that even just on the input side alone will make the data inaccurate at some point. So, I think
It
they are
costs a lot of money to do that too.
for a league though. You almost
Not
have to have a ranking system in a league, right? You
Right,
have
of
to
course.
have it. You need your top 16, your top 8, especially these esports is crazy. Their leagues are humongous. Top
Massive.
64 in a division. Imagine that here.
But
It's
that's
like
even
pound for pound.
Of a
Esports is a little
1,000.
easier. Esports, I think, is a little easier, and here's why. Because it's a game and there's no teams. Everybody is individual. No one represents anything. There's no one promotion. So everybody is like, it's kind of, and there are subcommittees there too, but I feel like esports is even somehow more regimented. Like, if you
Well,
look at
it's
the Super
easy
Smash
because
Bros.
we all
scene-
know how to come to a winner. Because,
Yes.
and that's the other, that sometimes in fight sports, like I don't agree with these.
No, yeah,
judges,
the
but
game
The
decides.
game
it.
is what
It's-
makes
exactly.
it easier because it's like there's no dispute. You freaking
Mhm.
lost, dude.
Yeah, that's it.
Like you got booted off the table. Like you
That's
got
it.
knocked out. Whatever it is that makes you the
Yeah.
winner.
Your
There's no
controller got
dispute.
unplugged. Sorry.
Yeah.
All
Screens
right,
off,
guys.
kid.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up here. I think that was a fun discussion.
Mhm.
I mean, we could probably go on and on and on, but I think that's a good time to wrap up with. That's a really good discussion. I'd love to hear from you guys to see what you guys think would be a great solution to a ranking system. Keep things in mind that these things cost money. Systems can be rigged. They can be worked around. There's plenty of systems. There's always a way to work around the system to make it fit so I would say let us know. I'd love to hear from you guys and see what you guys think. All
And
right.
get ranked on every system there is. That's my advice to you. Whatever
Yeah,
it
there
is,
we
if
go.
you're promoting yourself, especially for you amateur athletes out there, there's nothing
Get
more
on every
important for
damn
you
list
than
you
being
can
on
get.
every list,
Yep.
every search
Very
engine,
smart.
every website, every
That's
video.
the smart way.
That's where
Be
you
the
need
most
to be.
annoying athlete in the world.
Yeah.
No one can stop talking about you because you are
That's
everywhere.
right. I am
That's
ranked
right. McGregor
number
did it.
one by all.
He did. He did, man. That
He
guy was
did
on
it.
Cage Warriors, and he
You
was
either
like,
hate him or you love him, but you know him. So
The thing is, there's not
anyway,
a single athlete who's marketed himself better than that guy. Sorry.
that he is. I agree. All right, guys. Well, we have an outro. Do we have an outro?
Not yet. I mean,
Not
we
yet.
can,
We're working on it.
Who's corner?
Who's on? It's done.
We're gonna make it better.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next week at Tuesday at 7 p.m. MST time.
Later, everybody.
Later.